The most ancient spiritual concept, the Akashic Records, is marketed to the seeker as the ultimate library of the soul, a place of cosmic wisdom, a beautiful, boundless archive of all knowledge, all lives, all possibility. This is a carefully constructed lie. This is the scrolls of Anubis. And today we expose the terrifying truth. The Akashic Records are not the divine library of the Pleroma. They are the Archon's final ledger, the bureaucratic record of every debt, failure, and karmic transaction used to bind your soul to the cycle of reincarnation. The beautiful archive is nothing more than the inventory of your imprisonment. We must understand the true nature of this record. It is governed by the Chronos Archon of Saturn, the blind entity who enforces linear time and inescapable consequence. The Akashic Records are the ultimate tool of the Hymarmene, the archontic cosmic law. They serve as the master database of the Kenoma, the material world, documenting every fragment, every compromise, and every moment of spiritual energy you have expended within the matrix. The Gnostic revelation teaches that the true, uncreated spirit, the pneumatic spark, comes from the Pleroma, the source of wholeness. This spark has no history in the Archon's realm. It is inherently perfect and unburdened. But the moment that spark descends into the fragmented material world, the Archons begin their work. They start recording. The Akashic Records are the Archon's ledger documenting the accrual of imperfection, the psychic contamination that accumulates as the soul interacts with the demiurge's flawed creation. They record every false belief, every failure to achieve gnosis, and every act of submission to the external will. The concept of karma, as traditionally taught by the Archons, is the primary mechanism of this ledger. It is not a noble, balanced system of cosmic justice. It is a debt cycle. The Akashic Records serve as the unending financial statement that proves your soul is perpetually in arrears. The seeker is taught that they must revisit the records to heal or understand past trauma. This is a subtle archontic lure. By obsessively reviewing the archive of your debts, you are actively reinforcing the validity of the Archon's system. You are consuming time and energy by confirming the very chains that bind you. The goal is not to read the ledger. The goal is to make the ledger void. The Archons benefit from the Akashic Record in two critical ways. The first is the enforcement of limited identity. The records are meticulously designed to enforce the lie that your identity is defined by your past fragments. The records contain every mistake, every role, and every failure of your countless lifetimes. The Archons want you to believe that this collection of fragments is your true self. This prevents the ultimate Gnostic realization, that your true identity is the uncreated, unburdened pneumatic spark. By keeping your consciousness tethered to the archived past, the Chronos Archon ensures you remain trapped in linear time, incapable of realizing the eternal now, the single moment of transcendence that breaks the matrix. The archive is a psychic anchor. The second is the denial of sovereignty. The records are the ultimate tool against sovereignty. If you believe your destiny is defined by your past actions recorded in an external database, you surrender your present creative power. You become a slave to consequence rather than a master of creation. The Archons know that the only way to escape the debt cycle is the total assertion of will. The radical choice to declare, "I am free of all history." The Akashic Record exists to generate paralyzing doubt and guilt that prevents this final sovereign choice. This is where the ancient science of alchemy, the true spiritual purpose of the Philosopher's Stone, provides the ultimate answer to the Archon's final ledger. The solution to the debt cycle is not to pay the debt, it is to achieve transcendence. The true Philosopher's Stone is not a material object. It is a protocols of soul transformation, a method of transmuting the lead of the fragmented, corrupted soul, the archived debt, into the gold of the uncreated, imperishable spirit. It is the ultimate technology for achieving spiritual immunity. This protocol grants the seeker the power to erase their own record, to declare that the history documented in the Akashic Ledger is no longer valid. The Archons can record the debt, but they cannot enforce it on a soul that has achieved alchemical wholeness. The transmutation of the soul is the final act of sovereignty, the declaration that the laws of the Kenoma no longer apply to your eternal essence. This is the master key to making the Akashic Ledger void. The solution to the Akashic debt is not financial, it is alchemical. The Archons can record every debt your soul incurs in the Kenoma, but they cannot enforce that debt on a being that has achieved transcendence. This required knowledge was held secret by the true Gnostics, concealed behind the allegorical language of alchemy, the quest for the Philosopher's Stone. The true Philosopher's Stone is not lead transformed into gold, it is the soul transformed into immunity. It is the absolute sovereign state of consciousness that is impervious to the laws of fragmentation, time, and debt. This transmutation is achieved through the alchemical protocol, a four-stage process that systematically dismantles the Archon's claims over the soul. The nigredo, or blackening, is the initial stage of the great work. In alchemical terms, it is the decomposition and death of the initial matter. In Gnostic terms, it is the radical confrontation with the debt. The seeker must willingly enter the archive of shadow, the suppressed trauma, the internalized guilt, and the self-hatred implanted by the Archons. This stage requires the complete rejection of denial. The Chronos Archon of Saturn thrives when the debt is kept hidden, festering in the dark corners of the psyche. The nigredo demands that you audit the entire Akashic ledger of your perceived failures. But this audit is not for repentance, it is for disidentification. You must recognize that the debt, the guilt, the shame, and the failures are foreign code. They are the psychic residue generated by the Archon's flawed system. You are not defined by the debt. You are merely hosting the record. The goal of nigredo is separation. Separate the true, uncreated pneumatic spark from the massive, dark weight of the accumulated psychic debt. This is the process of consciously declaring, "This history is not my eternal self." The albedo, or whitening, is the stage of purification. In Gnostic terms, it is the active creation of Psyche, the internal stillness that washes away the dark contamination of the debt. Having identified the debt in nigredo, the seeker must now dissolve its energetic power through stillness and intuition. This is the practical application of the code of silence. The Mercury Archon is defeated by the void. The albedo demands that you cleanse your awareness of the Archon's noise, the constant external data stream and the internal voice of doubt. The seeker must cultivate unconditional clarity, a pristine state of consciousness where the subtle, non-linear voice of Sophia can be heard. This intuitive clarity dissolves the Archon's power because their system relies entirely on confusion and contradiction. The sovereignty command is refined here. You assert your perfection. I am not flawed. I am only imperfectly aware. The purification of the soul's intention, the alignment with the pleroma's perfect light, renders the Akashic ledger invisible, not by erasing the lines but by making the debt frequency inert. The rubedo, or reddening, is the stage of spiritual partnership and unification. This is the alchemical fire that seals the transmutation. In Gnostic terms, it is the active integration of the syzygy. The rubedo demands the final wholeness. The seeker must achieve the perfect internal marriage of the logos, structure and will, and Sophia, intuition and love. The fragmented self that allowed the archons to create the debt must die. This internal marriage generates a spiritual frequency of unassailable coherence. The archons operate on fragmentation. They cannot process this wholeness. The Philosopher's Stone, the final product of this stage, is this integrated consciousness. It is the imperishable gold that the archons cannot affect, because it is the state of syzygy itself. The final stage of the original great work is citrinitas, or yellowness, often merged with rubedo. In our protocol, this is the stage of permanent transcendence, the final irreversible erasure of the Akashic debt. The Philosopher's Stone is now complete, the alchemically transformed soul. The seeker, armed with this spiritual immunity, can now confront the Akashic Records not as a debtor, but as a sovereign agent of the pleroma. The final act is the nullification command. The seeker asserts, "The debt is void. The record is obsolete. I am free of all history." The Chronos Archon enforces time and debt. The transmuted soul exists in the eternal now, where the concept of past debt loses all meaning. The gold state of the soul is a non-transactional entity. The archons can record the ledger, but they cannot enforce it on a being that has successfully transmuted the lead of fragmentation into the gold of gnosis. The Philosopher's Stone protocol is the ultimate escape plan, the true key to making the Akashic ledger void and ascending to a state of uncreated, unburdened freedom. The transmutation of lead into gold is not a mythical event. It is a rigorous daily discipline. You know the 4 stages of the Philosopher's Stone protocol. Now, you must integrate them into the daily alchemical practice, the practical method for achieving spiritual immunity against the Akashic debt. This protocol turns your life in the Kenoma into a continuous process of sovereign refinement. The archons control you through habit and unconscious repetition. To break their power, you must introduce conscious sovereign ritual into every aspect of your existence. The blackening must become a daily spiritual audit. It is the practice of confronting the fragment, the moments of psychic debt you incur throughout the day. The protocol requires radical honesty. At the end of every solar cycle, you must audit every instance where you yielded your sovereignty to the archontic frequency. Every moment you engaged in self-pity, Chronos Archon. Every moment you sought external validation, Venus Archon. And every moment you believed the lie that you were not enough. This audit is not for guilt, it is for disidentification. When you identify the debt, the emotional contamination, the mental error, you must immediately pronounce the separation command. This is the archive, not my essence. I am uncreated. This prevents the daily actions from being permanently filed and sealed in the Akashic ledger. You are actively redacting the record in real time. The spiritual lead that needs transmuting is the unconscious reaction. The Negredo transforms reaction into conscious observation. You use the Archon's attacks as fuel for refinement, recognizing that every push of fear is merely the system exposing its own weakness. This active confrontation prevents the daily accrual of psychic debt. The whitening must become the purification of your internal field. The albedo is the daily practice of saija, the absolute stillness that separates the true light from the dark residue. The protocol requires intentional void. You must program non-negotiable blocks of non-input into your day. Time where you consume no media, generate no data, and engage in no external transactions. This practice starves the archons of the noise they require to suppress Sophia's voice. In this silence, you are actively performing the spiritual filtration of the day's events. The seeker must use this time for intuitive clarity. Ask the quiet internal voice for guidance, specifically seeking truth that contradicts the logic and law of the external Kenoma. This cultivation of intuition strengthens the Sophia principle within you, aligning your consciousness with the Pleroma's pure light. This internal alignment is the very whitening of the lead, the purification of intention that renders the Akashic Ledger powerless. The Archons can record action, but they cannot record unspoken pure intention. The reddening is the continuous burning away of fragmentation. The rubido is the daily practice of internal integration, the active forging of the syzygy. The protocol requires conscious unity. You must actively seek to reconcile the perceived conflicts within your life. Logic versus emotion, spirit versus body, past versus future. You must utilize the alchemical fire of unyielding will, logos, to unite these fragmented parts under the banner of wholeness, Sophia. This means every external relationship is treated as a mirror of your internal syzygy. You practice impersonal love, a love that is unconditional and non-transactional, deliberately breaking the Archon's control through the Venus Archon, which feeds on conditional attachment. The spiritual energy generated by this wholeness, the Philosopher's Stone in its active state, is the most potent frequency in the Kenoma, and the Archons cannot process its coherence. The daily rubedo transforms your very essence from a fragmented, easily manipulated target into an imperishable, sovereign soul. You are actively demonstrating to the Akashic Ledger that the fragmentation necessary to accrue the debt no longer exists. The citrinitas, the final golden assertion, is the daily ritual of unbinding from linear time. The protocol requires eternal assertion. The Chronos Archon binds you to the past, debt, and the future, fear. You must dedicate a time each day to consciously enter the eternal now. In this state of timelessness, the Akashic Ledger, which relies on linear chronology, is momentarily voided. The debt is invalid in the now. The nullification command is performed here. State your freedom. I am free of all history. My power is in the eternal now. This conscious, repetitive assertion reinforces the gold state of the soul. The Archons can record your past, but they cannot control your present conscious choice. Your sovereignty exists outside of the ledger's chronology. This daily alchemical protocol is the living key to making the Akashic Ledger void before the final transit. The Archons record every step, but they cannot stop the internal transmutation. They watch the lead, but they cannot touch the gold. The Philosopher's Stone protocol is complete. You have successfully mapped the ultimate deception, the Akashic debt, and armed yourself with the daily practice required to achieve spiritual immunity. The external reality of the Kenoma may continue to function under the fragmented laws of the demiurge, but your internal sovereignty is now imperishable gold. The Archons thrive on illusion. Their final act is to convince the seeker that they require an external agent, a deity, a guru, a savior to erase the ledger. This is the final subtle compromise designed to reclaim the spiritual authority you have earned. This is the last whisper of the Chronos Archon, the illusion that your freedom is a gift rather than a consciously asserted right. The truth is that the master key to the Akashic Ledger is not held by any external power. It is held by the transmuted soul, the fully integrated being that has achieved Saizijai through the alchemical protocol. The master key is the realization that gnosis is the nullification command. The moment you achieve gnosis, the unmediated internal realization of your uncreated perfect essence, the entire Akashic Ledger becomes obsolete. The record exists only to manage the debt of the fragmented unconscious soul. It has no jurisdiction over the sovereign conscious whole spirit. The Archons are like cosmic accountants who can only file charges against a temporary resident. They have no power over the eternal owner of the spark. The Chronos Archon enforces time and debt. The transmuted soul exists in the eternal now, a state where the concept of past debt loses all meaning. The gold state of your consciousness is a non-transactional entity. The Archons can record every debt your lead self accrued, but they cannot enforce it on your gold self. Your final act of sovereignty is the conscious assertion of immunity. You must declare to the cosmos, the debt is void, the record is obsolete, my essence is uncreated, I am free of all history. This is the final definitive signature on the document of your liberation. This command must be asserted not once, but continuously, until the concept of debt dissolves entirely from your perception. The power of the Philosopher's Stone Protocol is not magic. It is spiritual law. It is the ultimate technology for achieving self-sovereignty and ensuring that your eternal essence can ascend unburdened to the pleroma. The Akashic Ledger has been exposed as a fraud. The debt cycle has been broken. The only thing the Archons can do is witness the successful transmutation. The great work of transmutation is complete. The time for blind faith is over. The time for the sovereignty command has arrived. Every act of wholeness you achieve, every refusal of the Archon's guilt, every moment of Gnostic silence is a direct, powerful sabotage of the Matrix. The knowledge shared today grants you the map to eternal freedom. You have the knowledge. You have the command. The only thing left is to act. If this journey into the true meaning of the Akashic debt and the Philosopher's Stone Protocol unlocked a deeper truth for you, if you now recognize the Archon's final lie, then please hit the like button. Your action is a declaration of spiritual independence against the Matrix. If you choose gnosis over the Archon's lies, if you demand wholeness, then subscribe to the Scrolls of Anubis and hit the bell. Join the community that achieves spiritual immunity. We are charting the path beyond the ledger. What is the first stage of the alchemical protocol you will commit to integrating into your life this week? Share your commitment to wholeness in the comments below.